Welcome to Bonding, a kinky podcast hosted by me, Sarah Butcher, aka Sub in the City. I'm a BDSM coach, kink educator, and proudly collared submissive, with over a decade of experience on the BDSM scene. I'm on a mission to bring BDSM into the 21st century and empower curious kinksters like yourselves to consciously explore what BDSM means to you. In this podcast, you'll hear me talk about all things kink. So whether you're new to the scene or you're a long-standing member of the community, welcome kinksters. I'm looking forward to bonding with you. Welcome back to Bonding. I am your host, Sarah Butcher. Well, actually, today we are your hosts because I'm back again with my partner and my dom, Carlos.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
And we're going to be doing a part 2 of Ask Me and My Dom Anything because so many of you have been asking to hear more from us. So, we've got some questions for you today that some of you have sent in, and we're going to be just having an open conversation about some of the things on our journey that will hopefully help you too.
Open and candid conversation.
Okay, so one of the first questions that we've had in is, how do we share a want or a need that we have within our dynamic, and how can you do that as well? Well, I think for us, we have just learned over the years that communication obviously is key, and it's been a real learning process for us to have those conversations and to kind of get to know what each other wants, even though we've been together 5 years this year. But it's an ongoing process, an ongoing journey, and because our needs are, constantly evolving and changing, it's really important that we are always having those conversations regularly. How was it for you when we first started?
I was scared the first time. I was very scared of saying I wanted to do this, I want to try this. I was partly embarrassed as well, because admitting that I wanted to do something also means that I had it with me and I wasn't saying it before.
So yeah, there were things that you were afraid to say.
Yes.
And there are things that I was afraid to say to you too. And I think even now, sometimes I still get shy. I think so many people assume that because of the work that I do and that we do together, that we're just these perfect people who have excellent communication. It's not that easy. It is hard work. You do have to really work at it. And I do still feel shy sometimes. But you'll know when there's something that perhaps I'm not saying or that I want to say, but I'm feeling nervous about it.
I remember saying, "Oh, you're a sex therapist, and I am your partner. I want some of that tea." And we started talking about impact play, just opening that conversation in a safe space from both angles helped things moving along.
I think we spoke about this the last time we did this, but even since then, so much has changed. And there were things, as I say, things that I would never do maybe 10 years ago or in previous relationships or dynamics, things that I thought were going to be an absolute no for me and that I just couldn't explore, that now with you, it feels so different. And there's things that we love doing now that I never thought I would do and that we're really, really enjoying it. But again, it's not perfect the first time.
Yeah.
There have been things that we have started to explore, particularly opening up and maybe including other people as well. That's something that takes so much communication. I think that's one of those areas where a lot of people struggle with that or find challenges with that, because that's introducing something else into the dynamic that really takes so much communication. So that's something that we have been exploring together that has taken a lot of time to get it to where we want it to be and to find our sweet spot with that and to find our confidence with that.
If you imagine wanting to say something that you want to try with your partner, try in your head to say it as plain as possible. So run the scenario where you go, look at your partner and said, I want to smack your bottom while I have sex with you. And then run that scenario in your head and then maybe adjust certain things. If it's the first time that you're asking this to your partner, say something like, "Oh, have you ever been spanked? how do you feel about being spanked while we are having sex? I think for me, my personal opinion, I had the most open and candid dialogue with you at the beginning, and then I started thinking, okay, maybe I can adjust this. I can that would be an easier step to take towards that goal.
I think that's a really good point. Like, clarity, while it may not feel sexy, is so important whatever you're doing, whether it's impact play, whether it's opening up your relationship, wanting to include other people. You've got to be so super clear in what you want. Like, say it out loud, plain and simple, like you've just said. And also just notice how that makes you feel. And if you can catch that as well, and then even share that, that's a really good step to really understanding perhaps any insecurities or fears that you might have with that. But being super, super clear, because just saying that you like something, or, you know, for example, oh, I like being submissive, or I like being spanked, or I'd like to open up our relationship, those things are very vague. They could mean one thing to me and a completely different thing to you. And that's where the conversation is so important, because you need to be very specific about what is it about submission that you like? How do you like to submit? What does that look like for you? And what does that look like for your partner as well? And as I say, particularly if you're then opening up a dynamic with other people, it gets even more complicated because you've got more people to have that same conversation with. But that clarity, all I can say is practice it. It's a skill that you can hone over time. It's going to feel clunky. It might feel embarrassing. It might feel awkward at the first time, but keep going with it, because it does get easier. Easier in the sense that it becomes more of a natural thing for you to do. It might not get easier in terms of the, you know, how you feel and perhaps the things that it's evoking in you. Because if you've listened to me talk about things before, this is like exploring your kinks. This is like a deep shadow work, because you're uncovering all these parts that perhaps you're afraid to say, and you're telling it to someone else, and that can make you feel really vulnerable. Yeah,
it's having a goal and then working small steps towards that. As I said before, in your head you're playing this scenario like, I want to smack your ass until it's red while I fuck you. Then you have to break that down into small steps and then open up that conversation. That's the candor that you need to be able to speak to your partner. That's the things that you need to be able, and laugh about it. If you laugh about it, if you're happy being vulnerable and saying these things, and that's very useful in your relationship. People underestimate how much being completely candid could take you, how far it can go.
And I think that's like normal to maybe want to burst out into laughter. If you're feeling awkward,
and do it, burst into laugh after you say it, but then it's out there and you can start the conversation.
I think people have this real misconception that kink and these conversations need to be really serious. It doesn't have to be like that. It's super playful. We're super playful. We don't have to take ourselves so seriously. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to say things that feel silly, but you're really not. It's all part of the learning journey, and I think it should be playful. Otherwise, if you're taking yourself too seriously, you're going to put so much pressure on yourself, and it's going to feel too overwhelming, and you're not going to be able to create what you want to create.
Being playful is a very good advice, actually. You can create a game for both of you where you both write in little cards, like, again, I want to smack your bottom. I want to do anal. Kind of mix and match. No, hear me out. Then, randomly, you select one of my pile, I select one of your pile, we put it on the table, we read it, we laugh, and then we said, that will be a 6 out of 10. Or that'll be a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
That random combination. And that will open so many conversations for your sex life.
Making these little games can really take the pressure off. It can be a really fun date night. Definitely have these conversations outside of the bedroom. Don't take it too seriously. Take it slowly and really listen to each other. I think this is so important. We have those cards. Pick one of each card and have like 2 minutes of just letting the other person speak and just receiving it. You don't have to respond. You don't have to put your opinion in right away. Just really hear them and let that sink in. The idea is that you are really trying to put yourself in your partner's shoes and understand what that thing means to them, because what it means to you on the surface, you see something like pegging or anal, you're going to have your own stereotypes or your own experience, perhaps past experiences that come to mind immediately. So that could shut you down and go, no, I definitely don't want to do that. But if you actually take the time to just listen and receive what your partner likes about that thing, that can open up whole new avenues and understandings around something and could completely change the context and what it means to you as well. And I think that's really wonderful, that you don't have to, shut anything down, but at the same time, there's no pressure to do anything. It's just about understanding where you both stand and then taking it from there.
I guarantee that by the end of the game, you'll be having, after finishing all the cards, you'll be having, what about restraints and wax? Oh, that's a good combination. Shall we take it to the bedroom?
The one thing I would say, though, is, of course, there are going to be times when your kinks may misalign, like your partner likes something that you're not into. And how do you navigate that? And the only way you can really navigate that is to always go at the pace of, I don't want to say the slowest person, because that makes it sound like, I don't know, that they're behind. But that is, the slowest person, as in, if someone's not ready to try something, but the other person is, you don't try it yet. But how can you maybe find a middle ground where you can maybe start to
baby steps towards an agreement of the minds in a space or in a point that is okay for both of them.
Mm-hmm. Something else that we hear a lot, particularly, from couples and from individuals, is about navigating the party scene, because I think it can be quite intimidating to go to a kink party or a sex party for the first time. And, we've been there and we know how that feels.
Yeah. Be very open-minded about what you're going to see, where you're going to be, what you're going to be wearing, and what others are going to be wearing, what others are going to be doing. And
definitely best to do your research first of all, and I'd recommend actually going to maybe some social events first of all. There are many social events for the kink community and the sex positive community where you can make friends and get to know what kind of parties are around. And like you said, just be aware of the potential things that you could see and experience on that night. But my biggest piece of advice, I would say, is go in with no expectations. You do not have to go to a kink or a sex party for the first time and think that you are going to have sex, you're going to play, you're going to do all of these things, because, again, that puts an immense amount of pressure on, or it means that you might leave disappointed if those things didn't happen. I mean, the first time that we went to a party together, we didn't play, we just kind of observed, we had some drinks, we chatted to a few people, and actually we go to plenty of kink parties where we don't play. We go for the vibe, we go for connecting with people, we go for a dance. We will only play if the mood feels right.
Yeah, we're a bit of a voyeurist a bit as well. We like being in a big place where there's music, blasting good music, and there is, people playing in the corner, and it's the vibe and the energy is very different from a standard rave. So what I'm trying to convey is that if you go with your partner for the first time to a play party, just go with no expectations, see what people are doing, and don't do it then and there. Just think whether you could be doing the same, whether would you enjoy, whether you find it kinky being in there playing that role.
I think the first time that I ever went to a torture garden, I walked in and I was just like, I'm home, these are my people. Like, just the vibe and like the way everyone was dressed. So really think about what matters to you. Is it you like the dressing up, you like to be creative with your outfits? Is that something that you love? In which case there'll be certain events that are better for you. Is it that you want more intimate or sensual play? Then you might want to go to a smaller event, because you've got big events like TG, Torch Garden, Club Verboten, but then you've got smaller, more intimate parties like Dominion Vita. You can really choose the vibe that you prefer and maybe try a few and see what you like. You've got more of the rave style ones with the techno music. You've got some actually that play Latin music. It really depends what you like.
Yeah, and you can also, there is a range of things that you can start your journey in. You don't have to go to a play party. You can go to a sex positive event.
Yes, there are loads of events out there that, don't involve any play. Things like the Rocket Project. Again, go get dressed up, have a great time. But there's no expectation or no pressure to play. But even when you go to play events, the play areas are very much out of the way. So, if you feel like, actually, I don't want to see that this evening, you don't have to, because it's behind closed doors, it's in a private space. So you can just enjoy all of the other parts of it. And then maybe that gives you the energy and the vibe to want to go home and play in your own space, and just gives you that little bit of encouragement and confidence.
Yeah, it's totally fine to go to a play party with the mindset of, I don't know if I want to go because I don't want to see people fucking. That's absolutely fine. And you don't have to put yourself in that. So you can go to the event, be in the dance floor, and there are rooms especially where there is play party when, once you cross that border, then there is going to be a lot of sex happening. But it's okay to go to these events with sort of like that worry that, I don't want to fuck in front of everyone, or I don't want to be naked, or I don't want to see other people fucking. That's absolutely fine. And once you're there, you probably sort of relax into it a bit more, and you feel a bit more adventurous, maybe just going into the playroom to see what is it like, and then come out. That's absolutely fine as well.
And also this community, like as standard, the rules and the etiquette are just there. In most of these places, it's very much, goes unspoken, goes unsaid that you just respect other people. And actually, sex parties I feel safer in a sex party or a kink party than I would in a regular club. You're much more likely to get groped or touched like non-consensually in a regular club. You're not going to experience any of that. So actually, if you don't want any kind of sexualization or any kind of sexual attention, you're more likely to be respected for that in a sex party, which sounds like so contradictory, but it's
it makes sense. Yeah, there are very well established rules in sex parties where consent is at the center of those rules.
I mean, you're definitely cared for at events like this, and it's it's very rare that but of course you're going to get shitty people anywhere. It happens, but this community is so hot on that, just like I've said before, particularly when it comes to meeting people in the community. And there's a lot of people out there that can be not genuine, but this community are so hot on sniffing those people out and making sure that everyone has a really good time and is cared for and safe and held, which I just love. We have made so many amazing friends, not just for like sex or play, but like real genuine friends and real genuine connections that we now hang out with in our everyday lives. Like, I've met some of the most amazing people through the kink community, and it's been so lovely to build that with you over the past 5 years, because I went to parties as a single person before I met you, but this feels so different and just so much nicer to be able to do that with you.
You're very welcome.
And so the final question we're going to talk about today is, we've had a question about when our libidos don't match, like how do we navigate that? And I think this is a very common one. In all dynamics with all couples, there are going to be times when your libidos don't match for whatever reason that might be. I know that particularly in our case, and for me as a woman, my menstrual cycle really highly dictates how I feel and how sexy I feel, and when I want to have sex and when I want to have play, and also what kind of play I want to do. Because if I'm in that period, like leading up to my bleed, my pain threshold's going to be a lot lower, so I don't necessarily want much hard impact. I also find that there are certainly fantasies where perhaps I feel a little bit more delicate around the time of my bleed, and actually in my ovulation period I'm more like confident and hyped up and quite open to more perhaps like erotic humiliation, or the things that feel a little bit more like like
More
edge
raw,
play.
yeah,
More raw. And so I think, you know, we're really good at navigating that, but it really depends on what feels good for you and your dynamic, and to really respect that if you don't want to engage in sexy time, then don't, but you'll figure out what works for you.
For couples out there that the dynamic is very different to ours, or opposite, or vice versa, you can pre-establish what to do when that happens, when your libidos don't match. You can pre-agree, or if you want to make a contract and that's kinky for you guys, then you can pre-agree what could happen in those situations. Like, say for example, one of you are at work and the other one is really horny, then the contract dictates that you can only masturbate and orgasm with the other person consent or approval, you know, things like that could be really kinky. And for the person that is at work, all it takes is yes, you can come. But for the person that is on the other side, then it's a bit kinky to have to ask permission.
Yeah, and that also depends on if you are exploring a power play dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously, if you're not exploring a power play dynamic, but it's still the same. It's still the same in having that conversation, negotiating what happens then. You know, if someone else is feeling horny and they want a self-pleasure, how do you feel about that? Are you okay with them doing that? Do you want to watch? Do you want to be there and be involved, but it not necessarily have to be sexual for you? I think there's this thing around, you know, I want to use the term service. Like when we say service topping or service bottoming, we're meaning, you know, you can be in a role or be involved in some kind of play or sexy time, but you don't necessarily have to be getting anything sexual from it yourself if you're not in the mood for that. Yeah. But again, it depends if you're happy to give that. And this is where I would recommend going and having a look at the wheel of consent. I talk about this in my BDSM 101 class and my consent classes, but it's all about, you know, the things that you allow, the things that you want to receive, the things that you're happy to give service to, all of these different things. And I think it's important to remember that kink, BDSM doesn't have to actually be sexual at all. It doesn't have to involve orgasm. It doesn't have to involve penetration. It doesn't have to involve sexual touch. It could just be play for other reasons. And so, yeah, I think it's important to remember that actually it doesn't have to be all about getting off.
Yeah, and going back to what I said about establishing a contract, agreeing a contract, consensual contract, dictates a lot of things, but one of the things could also be including what happens when their libido doesn't match, and just have that open conversation.
Yeah, just like anything, it always comes back down to communication, I think. And I think the last thing I would leave you with is just be patient with yourself, have compassion for yourself when communication is hard. It's not easy, but it is a skill that you can, you know, keep practicing and yeah.
It gets better with time, but yeah, you build it up.
Okay, so I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been really great to chat to you and have us both on the couch again.
Yeah. See you next time. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends. And if you want to continue to consciously explore your kinks, be sure to check out my upcoming workshops and events at subinthecity.com/events, or book your one-to-one BDSM exploratory session with me today at subinthecity.com/booking.